a wolf head staring at you.
Staring at me, keeping up with me. I'm at about 20 miles an hour.
Scientists have just unveiled what they claim is the first ever clear footage of the Michigan Dogman, a legendary cryptid rumored for over a century.
What are the chances here that this is a bear or a wolf that jumped onto the side of your truck and was essentially trying to get in?
There's no chance of that. He was running next to me.
This startling development has sparked debates in both scientific circles and the public sphere, setting the stage for renewed discussions about the creature's existence.
On 2 legs.
On 2 legs?
Yep.
But that's like 9 feet up. That's super tall.
Yeah, and he was stooping down to look in.
This creature, I tell you, it was nothing like I've ever seen before. Standing on 2 legs, it was tall, far taller than any man, covered head to toe in.
Could this newfound evidence finally prove what eyewitnesses have insisted on for generations? Or will it be yet another mystery left unsolved in the wooded regions of America's heartland? The origins of the Michigan Dogman legend. For many people across the United States, the term cryptid conjures images of Bigfoot marching through the Pacific Northwest, or the Loch Ness Monster gliding beneath Scottish waters. Fewer are familiar with the Michigan Dogman, a creature said to be part human, part canine, and entirely terrifying. Yet in pockets of Michigan's rustic landscapes, folks have been talking about the Dogman for ages. Some accounts date back to the late 19th century, while others point to even earlier references among indigenous tribes. One popular origin story claims that white settlers were not the first to encounter the Dogman. According to local lore, certain Native American groups had their own tales of large wolves that could walk upright and seemed almost human in their watchful behavior. Some legends even categorize it as a skinwalker, a shapeshifter capable of stepping between the forms of human and beast. Early explorers and trappers in the 1700s and 1800s occasionally mentioned hearing eerie howls at night, which they attributed to local wildlife. It wasn't until the lumber boom of Michigan that more concrete stories of a wolf-headed figure on 2 legs began to emerge. By the 1880s, lumberjacks working deep within the state's forests told chilling tales of encountering a wolf-like creature in the dim glow of lantern light. In 1887, near Wexford County, a group of workers allegedly chased a strange dog into a hollow log, only to have it stand up on its hind legs and emit a reverberating shriek that sent them scrambling in fear. This incident is traditionally held as the first official Dogman sighting put to paper. What sets the Dogman apart from other regional legends is the creature's persistent presence. People have claimed to see it every few decades, often in years ending with the number 7. Whether or not that pattern holds scientific weight, it has certainly contributed to the mystique, ensuring that curiosity about the Dogman remains alive. And now, with new footage purportedly captured by scientists, some believe there is finally evidence that may either confirm these legends or send them tumbling into the realm of hoaxes yet again. Early encounters and growing tension. As the legend grew, stories from different eras began weaving together a common thread. The Michigan Dogman was not just myth, but a flesh-and-blood creature lurking in the dense wilderness. By the 1890s, rumors spread of a hulking beast roaming near Buckley. Several townspeople whispered about monstrous paw prints found in the mud. One harrowing tale told of a farmer discovered lifeless beside his own plow, surrounded by impossibly large canine tracks. This imagery, repeated around campfires and across dinner tables, fed a palpable sense of unease among residents. It wasn't just the occasional death that spawned alarm, though these events certainly raised eyebrows in local communities. Many also referenced unearthly howls echoing through the night. Howls that sounded bizarrely human, yet distinctly animal. Some folks pointed to the creature's fear-inducing screams as evidence it could communicate on a level different from that of a mere wolf or dog. The lines between nature and the supernatural blurred, particularly as the region had its fair share of folklore about spirits and shapeshifters. By the first few decades of the 20th century, sightings continued to trickle in. In 1917, an especially chilling event took place when 2 horses were apparently frightened to death. Their eyes bulged wide, and neither animal bore any wound or sickness that could explain its sudden demise. It didn't take long for hushed speculation to blame the Dogman. People who heard the story imagined the horses catching sight of a towering, wolf-like monster strolling between the trees or lurking behind a pile of logs. Whether or not such an encounter actually happened, the impact on local imaginations was immediate and long-lasting. All these occurrences fed into a larger tapestry of Dogman lore. As the industrial age advanced, Logging camps gave way to newer industries and road networks, but the forests remained as mysterious as ever. Even those who dismissed the stories as tall tales had to acknowledge how consistent the details were. Canine head, bipedal stance, incredible speed, and a deeply unnerving howl. By the mid-20th century, the Dogman had become a curious staple of Michigan's strange heritage. A story, somewhere between fact and myth, until modern accounts sparked a new wave of attention. Modern fame. Through a radio stunt. Despite these older stories, the Dogman largely existed on the fringes of local folklore, whispered about at campfires but not often documented by mainstream media. That changed in 1987 when radio DJ Steve Cook from Traverse City performed a simple April Fool's prank that unexpectedly reignited widespread conversation about the creature. Cook wrote and recorded The Legend of the Dogman, a playful tune intended for laughs and lighthearted local flavor. He never anticipated the avalanche of phone calls and letters that would follow. After playing the song on the air, Cook was surprised when listeners began calling in, one after another, to state they had seen the Dogman for themselves. Some callers were trembling with emotion, even though these events had taken place decades earlier.
Now, getting closer and closer. I couldn't move, could hardly breathe. And then I mustered up.
A few recounted sightings from the 1930s, talking about packs of dogs among which one stood on two legs, or horrifying glimpses of glowing eyes just beyond the range of a flashlight. It was as though Cook's prank had tapped into a deep reservoir of repressed memories and local lore. These phone calls piled up, and before long, Cook realized he had inadvertently stumbled upon a phenomenon that might be more than just creativity. He was besieged with letters, interviews, and even requests for more Dogman coverage. The stories had similar threads, accounts of a tall canine figure with extraordinary agility, able to run alongside vehicles and vanish into the darkness without leaving definitive evidence. What started as a joke became a catalyst for renewed interest. Cook published the calls and letters, capturing how the region's residents believed that something sinister did roam the woods. People who had never told anyone about their experiences decided to come forward. Whether the large number of eyewitnesses confirmed a real, undiscovered species or simply highlighted the power of suggestion remains debated, but the result was undeniable. The Michigan Dogman was thrust into public view, evolving from an obscure local legend into a minor media sensation. Radio and newspaper interviews soon multiplied. In the swirl of these stories, the legend continued to attract believers, skeptics, and everyone in between. Joe Barger's terrifying encounter. Fast forward to 2022, and one terrifying encounter would once more draw nationwide attention to the Michigan Dogman. Joe Barger, a 6-year Army veteran and a seasoned truck driver, found himself face-to-face with what he firmly believes was the Dogman. The confrontation happened in the Manistee National Forest, a region often mentioned in cryptid circles for its remote stretches of wilderness. According to Barger's account, the night started out like any other shift. He was hauling a massive load of paper from a mill in northern Michigan and expected no surprises. However, as he pulled off to fix an air leak near the back brake chamber of his trailer, he got a prickling feeling at the base of his neck. He heard a bizarre vocalization that he couldn't place, part growl, part screech, entirely unsettling. Though the day hadn't fully darkened yet, he glimpsed something moving between the trees. Dismissing it as a potential black bear, he climbed back into the truck and continued on his route, hoping the unnerving sense of being watched would pass. As he drove, the tension only grew. While checking his mirrors on a lonely stretch of two-lane road, he suddenly saw a wolf-like head appear at his open driver's side window, peering in with what looked like keen intelligence. Barger, who was seated nearly 9 feet off the ground, realized this creature was running on 2 legs at about 20 to 25 miles per hour and was tall enough to look inside his cab. Its large, pointed ears and yellow eyes locked onto him in a way that sent a freezing shock down his spine. In that split second, battle-hardened or not, he felt raw terror. Grabbing the .45 Colt pistol at his waist, he fired 2 shots into the creature's face. It dropped immediately, sliding off into the vegetation at the roadside, but Barger's nightmare was just beginning. Distraught yet curious, he turned his massive truck around to check on the body. Within minutes, he was back at the exact location, but what he shot had simply vanished. In its place stood a mysterious Jeep and 2 onlookers who claimed to be watching some local bears. For Barger, there would be nothing normal about this night ever again. Government agents and a cover-up allegation. As if Joe Barger's encounter wasn't already surreal, it took an even darker turn. Several months later, he claimed an encounter with state police and, surprisingly, federal agents who arrived to question him. Detained at a scale house with his truck, Barger was confronted by men he described as extremely intimidating. They informed him that he had killed one of their assets, leaving him stunned when he realized they seemed to be referencing the creature he'd shot in the forest. The agents allegedly confiscated his gun, shuttered his bank account temporarily, and issued stern warnings to keep quiet or face serious repercussions. Barger, overwhelmed by the experience, grew convinced that governmental authorities were aware the Dogman existed and were even attempting to use it for covert operations. This stunning claim deepened the mystery. Was there really a secret program studying cryptids for military advantage? Or was this an elaborate misunderstanding spurred by fear, personal biases, or a hoax? Skeptics have naturally questioned the plausibility of this portion of Barger's story. They argue that if there truly were a robust Black Ops program involving cryptids, it seems unlikely that a truck driver who fired in self-defense would be left uncharged but thoroughly intimidated. On the other side, believers counter that covert government activity is rarely documented or logical to the public. Unusual projects have emerged periodically in declassified files, leading them to speculate that nothing is off the table. For Barger, the emotional weight of it was enough to make him recede from public conversation. Only after the dust settled did he agree to speak in interviews, determined that people deserved to know what he had gone through, both with the cryptid sighting and the subsequent run-in with authorities. Though the official record of any federal statements remains absent, Barger's testimony continues to circulate among Dogman enthusiasts, fueling intense debates about government secrecy and cryptid cover-ups. Indigenous connections and spiritual interpretations. Even before white settlers and modern-day truck drivers laid eyes on strange wolfish figures, local Native American tribes had passed down stories of powerful spirits and shapeshifters within the forests. Many cryptid researchers draw parallels between the legend of the Michigan Dogman and the concept of a skinwalker. Though specific definitions vary among different tribes, skinwalkers generally refer to individuals, often medicine people, who can transform into animals. The mention of a bipedal wolf-like entity with a piercing gaze has led many to wonder if there's an overlap between these tribal narratives and modern sightings. The Manistee National Forest also has its share of tragic history. Some historians point to old accounts of large-scale conflicts between native groups, culminating in substantial loss of life. There's a belief in some indigenous cultures that areas touched by mass tragedy or injustice can become spiritually charged, losing their usual harmony. People who subscribe to this viewpoint see cryptid sightings as possible manifestations of energy or spirits left behind by traumatic events. Just as tourists to Civil War battlefields claim to see phantom soldiers, perhaps these dense Michigan woodlands hold apparitions or physical creatures that carry the echoes of the past. Linda S. Godfrey, a noted investigator of wolf-like beings, has written about the significance of old burial sites and sacred grounds when exploring Dogman encounters. She references local historians who talk about ancient graves hidden in the forest, some containing the remains of men, women, and children from centuries past. Could the Dogman be a guardian spirit, a restless soul, or a direct descendant of some unknown wolf-human lineage? The interpretations vary widely, but many local tribes approach the subject with respect and caution. Eerie details and eyewitness descriptions. What makes the Michigan Dogman feel so real to its witnesses are the consistent, bone-chilling details shared across numerous encounters. People describe a frame that stands anywhere from 7 to 10 feet tall, often hunched forward, but capable of a bipedal stance. The face is unmistakably canine, like a large wolf with pointed ears, a long snout, and sometimes widely spaced, glowing eyes that shift between yellow, amber, or even blue hues, depending on the report. Just about everyone notes a mouthful of razor-sharp fangs. Then, there's the speed. Multiple eyewitnesses recount how the Dogman kept pace with moving cars or trucks, sometimes inching close enough to scratch at doors and windows. This aspect is particularly unnerving. Imagine driving late at night on a lonely road, only to glimpse a towering wolf being sprinting alongside you at 25 miles per hour. Others talk about leaps that defy logic, with some claiming the Dogman can easily jump across roads or scale rocky ledges at breakneck speed. One hallmark of the sightings is the creature's weird mixture of beastly and human traits. Witnesses swear up and down that it has hands resembling a person's but tipped with vicious claws. They mention muscular torsos, wide shoulders, and a sense of intelligence in its gaze that's far removed from an ordinary animal's. While some have described the Dogman crouching on all fours, most sightings feature it standing upright, the posture alone enough to make hearts pound. Even the creature's method of movement seems off-kilter, often described as an odd swaying gait on two legs, a trait no normal canine exhibits. In certain accounts, the Dogman carries roadkill or prey in its front limbs, as if using them like arms. The more one hears these repeated details, the harder it becomes to dismiss them as pure invention. Researchers highlight how improbable it is for so many unrelated witnesses across multiple decades to come up with the same descriptions in different corners of the state. Whether real, misidentified wildlife, or a compelling shared delusion, these consistent visuals give the Michigan Dogman legend a chilling credibility. Scientific curiosity and potential explanations. With the announcement of new footage, scientists specializing in wildlife biology and cryptozoology are suddenly paying more attention. Though cryptozoology isn't widely recognized as a formal branch of science, there are biologists and wildlife experts who take an interest in unexplained animal sightings. They ask, could the Dogman be an undiscovered wolf species? A genetic anomaly? Or perhaps a misidentification of known animals under unusual lighting or conditions? In some cases, sightings might be explained by large wolves standing on hind legs or black bears with mange, which can look uncanny when glimpsed from an odd angle. Nighttime illusions, headlights casting elongated shadows, or a fearful mind's tendency to see shapes in the darkness, can also play a role. Skeptics propose that at least some of the stories result from tall tales growing more elaborate every time they're told. Nonetheless, the claims of experienced outdoorsmen, hunters, and soldiers seeing the Dogman challenge the easy wave of dismissal. For instance, Joe Barger's account can't be chalked up to someone who rarely ventures outdoors. He's a veteran, used to high-stakes situations, who traveled regularly through wilderness areas. This background, supporters argue, gives his report more gravitas. With the teased, first-ever footage, speculation runs high. The video might show a large, shadowy figure loping between trees, or perhaps something more definitive, like a clear silhouette bounding across a road. Researchers who've gotten a sneak peek remain tight-lipped, which only deepens the intrigue. If the video is compelling, it could propel a fresh wave of scientific scrutiny. If it proves inconclusive or easily debunked, the Dogman saga might remain in that murky realm of local legend and cryptid lore. Ongoing sightings and cultural impact. Over time, the Dogman's influence has moved far beyond fleeting campfire tales. Stories of sightings continue to surface, sometimes from adrenaline-pumping nighttime drives or quiet fishing excursions along secluded rivers. The consistent trickle of new claims, coupled with older, well-known anecdotes, has kept the Dogman at the heart of local cultural identity. Festivals, radio shows, and podcasts dedicated to cryptids often include segments on the Michigan Dogman. The story draws in curious visitors who want to see the dense forests or snap pictures near signposts declaring, "Beware of the Dogman." Even skeptics are fascinated. Many turn these legends into personal investigations, driving around potential hotspots with night vision cameras, hoping to catch a glimpse of something extraordinary. Social media groups swap tips, share reported footprints, and dissect shaky video clips that might or might not show a giant canine figure dashing through the undergrowth. Online platforms like YouTube host interviews with witnesses who retell their run-ins in vivid detail, often garnering hundreds of thousands of views. Meanwhile, testimonies from cops, park rangers, and everyday folks, who might have better reason than most to remain silent, have given the legend even more credibility in the public eye. While some stories end at a mere glimpse of a strange silhouette, others are more dramatic, with the Dogman allegedly chasing vehicles or standing guard by an ominous patch of woods. Beyond pure lore, these sightings have real psychological impact. People who say they have seen the Dogman often describe PTSD-like symptoms, nightmares, or panic attacks. Joe Barger's account, for instance, highlights how quickly an ordinary night's work can shift into a life-changing, fear-filled moment. In local communities that accept the Dogman's existence as a distinct possibility, Parents might keep their children indoors after dusk, and thrill seekers sometimes go dogman hunting, ironically braving the forests in hopes of a fleeting glimpse. The alleged first ever footage and what comes next. Now we arrive at the major news. Recent reports suggest a team of wildlife biologists, initially conducting a deer population study, set up multiple trail cameras in remote sections of the Manistee National Forest. According to rumors, one of these cameras captured a figure that defies easy identification. The leaked version of the footage is said to show an upright, wolf-like being passing through a clearing at dusk, pausing as if to detect the camera's scent or motion. Then, in a few smooth strides, it disappears from view with remarkable speed. While no official statement has been made public, the fact that reputable academics are involved has fueled excitement. If real, this could be a watershed moment. Some branches of the scientific community remain skeptical or outright dismissive, pointing out that nighttime camera images can be deceptive. Shadows, combined with angled lighting, can transform ordinary wildlife into apparently monstrous shapes. Yet others who have supposedly seen the footage claim it shows proportions too tall and upright to be any known canid, with long, powerful limbs unlike those of a bear or mountain lion. Should this evidence hold up to professional scrutiny, the implications go well beyond local newspaper headlines. Researchers might flood into Michigan's forests, hoping to document the creature further, gathering hair samples, footprints, or DNA to verify an undiscovered species. The tourism angle would explode too, as cryptid enthusiasts from around the world flock to the area. On the other hand, if word spreads that the creature is dangerous, local calls to capture or eradicate it might multiply, raising thorny ethical and ecological questions. After all, if the dogman truly is some form of wolf-human hybrid, does it deserve protections akin to endangered wildlife? Or is it a threat that must be eliminated for public safety? Then there's the matter of governmental secrecy that Joe Barger hinted at. His story suggests that certain authorities might already be aware of the dogman's existence and prefer that it remain under wraps. If so, one can only imagine how they'd react to viral footage drawing global attention. Would agencies swoop in to seize the original recordings, labeling them national security concerns? Or would scientific transparency prevail if the footage can't be suppressed? When it comes to cryptid stories, there's always a big question. Why haven't we found conclusive proof yet? Bigfoot enthusiasts have asked this for decades, and the dogman community is no different. For supporters, the rare new footage could be the golden ticket they've been waiting for. For doubters, it's yet another piece of shaky evidence that may be debunked or overshadowed by more conventional explanations.